Hey, folks, welcome back to The Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It is 10 a.m. Central Texas time, and I'm back at it again. Back at it again with an interview of just amazing proportions, folks. This is an amazing opportunity for me. I met Graham Moore at the TexitCon conference. And boy, it's been really cool. It's been really cool to meet. I was sitting at a social event, and this guy comes up beside me at the bar, and he's ordering, I'm ordering, and he introduces himself. And one of the coolest things about it is he said, "You know what? Basically, we're just the same. Everyone he's meeting in Texas is just the same as the folks where he is in England." And it's really cool when you connect with people that seem, far away, and in reality, they're just brothers or sisters in this journey of life. And one of the beauties of this whole um, communication network, this whole expanse of connections that the internet's provide and technologies provided, is that we're recognizing that all of these commonalities that we're together in this process as one. And what is amazing is to know that there are people all over the world, whether they're in this chat, whether they're in our community, that want the same things that we desire. We have this deep core desire. And what we're recognizing is that these centralized authorities, um, these governments, these non-elected bureaucrats, these global non-elected groups are really fighting this battle. And this battle is between good and evil. And what it comes back to is the fundamental nature of our self determination, our personal sovereignty. One of the great things, and we're going to have this awesome conversation today, and I'm so glad that you joined me and Graham today, is because we're going to be talking about the things that really matter. And at the very core, if you follow me or watch Fridays with Steve Staggs, you know that the fundamental level, we are created in the image of God. And the sovereignty that we have is, at least spoken in our Declaration of Independence, as self evident. These are obvious things that we are sovereign. We are given rights not by the state, we're given rights by a creator. And therefore, we create government. We create these things. We are the sovereigns. But right now, the state believes that they're the sovereigns. They're the ones that control things and that we are subjects. And what's amazing about that is to have this discussion with an Englishman and a Texan. So I'm really excited for you to get a chance to meet Graham Moore, who leads the English Constitution Society and Party and has a show, a very popular show on Rumble called The Full English Show. He is a character and a gentleman. Folks, welcome to Crypto Heartbeat, Graham Moore. What's up, Graham?
Hello. Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here. It was so great to meet you. You traveled all the way into Texas. Why'd you do that? Why'd you come all the way over to meet and be at TexitCon?
There was a number of reasons. The primary reason is what the English Constitution Society and the party believe in is self-determination. You have got the exact same problem in the United Independent States of America as we have with the British. The British centrally controlled, and it's morphed into a political union. So if I explained it to people, which obviously if you want me to explain the situation, I will, but you've got the British, a political British system, and then you've got England that's been erased. You've got Scotland that's been erased. You've got Wales and Ireland been erased, and it's been replaced with a political system called the British. Right? That same system has been morphed, started roughly in 1860 in America, with obviously a civil war rather than a war of independence. And that war was not just about slavery. That was a fraction of it. The rest of it was about control. The Confederate States basically saying, we don't want a union, we don't want someone telling us what to do. And that was the core element. That was the British involvement in that. And from that, it's progressed and progressed and progressed until you've got Washington, D.C., and the financial element of that, which is obviously Wall Street controlling foreign policy and the issues in America. So for me, it was important to come and tell the Texans 110%, you're doing the right thing. You're not being unconstitutional. You're actually being constitutional, because it is them that is acted in bad faith and unconstitutionally. It's the Texans that are standing up and saying, we've had enough. So it was important.
Well, I appreciate that encouragement, and it was cool meeting you, because we literally met there at that social event, and it was cool. That was the first thing you said to me, is you're like, "Hey, we're the same," and you were encouraged, I think, by all the people that you met in Texas, even if we do talk funny.
No, well, and you drive on the wrong side of the road.
That's right. That's right.
But when you call an Uber and you get a V8 truck turn up, I was like, I love this. And I love V8, right? So you don't often see a V8 in England. So one of the crucial parts of this is there are people that I was talking to, people in the audience, people that I was engaging with like yourself. I can literally change the face on that person and call them X from over here, and you're almost identical in the way that you think and the way that you are, and we have all got this internal light of freedom. And what I said at the conference, that you've got English blood running through your veins.
That's right? It.
Because that's what it was all about. And again, our Declaration of Independence was the Glorious Revolution and the English Bill of Rights, which has been referenced by your Supreme Court a number of times. So once people understand the difference between British and English, and if anyone says to me, you're doing an impression of Michael Caine, I always say, no, he's doing an impression of me.
That's right.
This is my accent. It's where I live.
That's fantastic. Well, I want people to get to know you, Graham. What's your story and backstory? How did you come into all of this? How did this all happen for you? What's your background?
So a number of things over the years. I've got involved with the Constitution and the law. So I've studied the Constitution over about 30 years. I've helped people out in various court processes, represented them as a Mackenzie Friends and a paralegal in the criminal system and the civil system. And more, my focus has been on two things. One is self-determination as the number one human right. The second is human rights. And I'm not talking about wokeness. I'm talking about straight up human rights. The state cannot do this against you. And that's where the Constitution comes in, separation of powers and the law. And that's the thing that I concentrate on the most. Just to let people know, in the early 1970s, they removed constitutional law from the bar exams over here, right? They removed constitutional law from the curriculum in schools. So in or around 1970, they basically turned around and said, we don't want people knowing their constitution, right? And that means judges and the legal profession as well, right? What was the reason for that? Because in 1972, unconstitutionally and against the English Bill of Rights, the British Parliament, that believed it was sovereign, wrongly, I may add, then created a law called the European Communities Act 1972. And when people started to push back and said, hang on a minute, you can't do that, it's against the Bill of Rights. 3 years later, they decided to have a referendum because they realised it was unconstitutional, or they've been caught out. And then the whole media system kicked in to make sure it was, and you've all seen this happen, a positive referendum for the yes vote to go in. And then after that, they never, ever give us a referendum to come out until 2016. So 23rd of June, 2016, referendum. Technically, we still haven't left. And the reason I say that is because they incorporated lots of European Union laws that are unconstitutional. We have still got ties to the European Court of Human Rights at Strasbourg, which we shouldn't have. And again, there are elements of our Bill of Rights that were illegally, unlawfully repealed by stealth. And that's one of the things that the English Constitution Society explains to people. We've got 2 High Court cases at the moment on the go, and we've got potentially a case coming to Texas under universal jurisdiction, where we are bringing a case against the British Crown. So if there's anyone in the jury over there, you might want to listen to this, where the tort jury could award damages of any sum they like, and it's literally the British Crown that will be paying it, and that case is for torture.
Oh, wow. So how did you get involved in, when did this all begin for you when it comes to, because I know obviously the Brexit thing has definitely made the world more aware of, this idea of separating from unions, but we know that self-determination has been at the core of everything. I mean, 1950, there were half as many countries there are now. What's the origin story for you? Because you had a huge YouTube channel. You've obviously got a channel now that continues to grow, has incredible engagement. You're in obviously the society and the party. What's the origin of that? Where did that begin for you? And you've been studying this for a long time, but there's obviously a new form of activism, it seems like, more recently, or has this been continuing for a long time?
To be honest with you, so the easiest way to explain this is when I was 18, I was reasonably free, right? X amount of years later, I have felt, so younger people are not necessarily feeling it so much. So if you was born into the USSR, for example, and you was born into that environment, you wouldn't know anything different. Whereas I did, and I was feeling it and feeling it and feeling it. We see the switch with the police who were community police officers. Now they're nowhere near that. So again, there's a big difference between British police who wear a crown on their shoulders. So in other words, they are controlled centrally by the Home Office. Even though they have separate chief constables, that is not the same as in America. Your police, and I've met many of them on the shooting ranges, they're wonderful people, right? It's the federal element or the centrally controlled element. That's what we're under complete control. So just to give people an example, you all probably watching, if you're American, you understand what a grand jury is. Well, the grand jury come from England. The British took that off us in 1930. Your Fifth Amendment, the right to remain silent and for the state must prove in a case against you, they took that off of us. So the right to silence is gone. The caution has changed. Your Second Amendment comes from England, right? The Kerr case and Anton Scalia basically said in that case, historical inquiry, it came from England, and it was in the English Bill of Rights. And if he had gone a little bit further, he would have found out it was a confirmation of a previous right. So no one can take our weapons. Guess what? The British have disarmed us. I can't even have a bat by my door. I can't have anything in this house. If I have a knife longer than that in this house for self-defense, I'll be arrested. Even though it could be criminals coming in the house, I'm defending myself, etc., they will arrest me. That's how bad it's gone, considering in 1921, we was all walking around with firearms.
Yep.
And then it changes. And it's the gradualization of what they've done. And there's another group of people responsible for that, which are basically Marxists, and it's called the Fabian Society. And the International Fabian Society are all over the United States of America. So again, you look at your First Amendment, which is freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Again, that's been taken off of us. Recently, I've just had a court case Monday where we put a big case in. The police have arrested someone who was on a demonstration, and in the end, once the defence went in, they threw the case out. And they threw the case out. No other solicitor, no other barrister would have stepped in and helped him out, because they considered what he was petitioning or rallying for or protesting for, they considered him to be far right. And they actually wrote that in a statement from the Crown Prosecution Service. Right? What I said was, you have now made that a political offence. What he's just done by making that comment. And it then became too hot for them to handle when they threw the case out and awarded me costs.
Wow. Well, that's...
So, there's lots of reasons why people, but the general reason why I got involved with it is because us, meaning me, you, the people in Texas, it is our responsibility and this generation's responsibility to hand over the eternal flame of freedom to the next generation. And I don't want to be that generation that didn't see it, whatever the wording they want to apply to it. We need to hand them liberties and freedoms on to the next generation. And you're only one generation away from losing everything.
No, you couldn't be more right. And you know what's amazing to me is, I think folks here in the States, especially in Texas, don't realize how incrementally things have moved. And that, I think there's a certain level of recognition that basically everyone is armed in Texas. And, but when you see things like you're saying, you can't have a knife over this length in your home, can't have a bat by the door, that it just seems absolutely ludicrous. But that's where things are headed and where things are going. Let me ask you this question. English exit, we have Brexit, we have Texit, we've got all sorts of other independence movements around the world. You mentioned something that happened during the, I think it was in the census, as it relates to people basically saying, "Are you English?" What is the sentiment in England for an English exit? Because I would think the ramifications of that are significant to Scotland, to Wales, there's so much implication of it. What's the sentiment there in England?
So the first thing you need to understand is that the British are think of the British as the same as the Soviets, right? The Soviet Union was created as a political union. So what I normally do is show people you have the British Union, and that was created by the Acts of Union in 1706, 1707, and that created a British Parliament, a political union between Scotland and England. That was it, the two countries, right? So the British Union, then they progressed that to the American Union, 1860, and then the Soviet Union, and then the Yugoslav Union, the European Union, and then they started to create their sphere, right? And that is, they are remolding the world in the image that they want, right? Not in the image that what the people want. So getting back to your question, for the first time ever, in 2011, they put on the census. So the census has been every 10 years for centuries, right? But the first time ever in the history of the census, they put on the census document English only national identity, right? Then it had British only national identity. And then it had British English national identity, right? The survey come back, and it come back with 32.4 million people that ticked the box English only national identity, right?
Wow.
It turned out it was 57% of the population and 67% if you took the confused ones, which were the British English, right? So again, there are many people that just don't understand the difference because of the way the education system is, the Marxism in the education system, and what they're trying to do is actually destroy England. Let me just make sure I put this quote out. Karl Marx said, "Every communist revolution has been shipwrecked on the rock of England." He did not say Britain. He said England. And it is the common law and the constitution that is under attack. That's what they fear the most. And that's why they keep nibbling at it. And when they start the nibble, which is why you shouldn't give an inch, when they start to nibble, that's when you start to lose. So from that information, I thought, all right, we're going to start pushing forward. No, what they did was they used that information from the census, and then they started to flood from that point on. They knew exactly where to put what we describe as illegal immigrants or asylum seekers into the highest areas that had been shown to be English only national identity. Because what that means is you start pushing up the British, because then people regard themselves as British, not English. And that means that the English start to come down. That's why they used that. The government paid £4 billion to these very large corporations to house these people, and that's still ongoing, right? So it wasn't. Whilst it was a good thing that everyone said we're English, it was a bad thing because we realised why they've never done it before. Why have they done it now? And they're doing it to destroy England, and England is the beating heart of the United Independent States of America. It is the Constitution that's under attack. And your Constitution, literally, in front of me there, is exactly the English Constitution. And people don't realise it come from England, not Britain. It's not British. England has existed as a nation for 1,096 years, right? So when you think about that, and you think how old America is, right, as an independent nation, and you look at exactly what they've done, you can see why they're attacking it. And it's the communists that are doing that. So getting back to whether there's a will for it, there is definitely a will. When I go out and speak to people and we do conferences, and I go out, we do something called Stand in the Parks, or I'm invited to speak somewhere, 9 out of 10 times I'll get a standing ovation. Because people love what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. We're not about politics. We're constitutionalists. We're talking about the rule of law and our rights versus the state. And people accept it and understand it, especially, obviously, with, I won't say it if you're on YouTube, but a certain other situation happened. If I was on Rumble, people would be listening to my views on that. But that's the point of this, is basically fighting back. And they know that the Constitution is a weapon, so they seek to destroy it.
Wow. Well, it makes complete sense. So let's shift to this idea of the financial system as well. I think what's incredible, and I talk about on my channel a lot, is the fact that this is the first time in history where this political power and financial power has the ability to be separated. And so I often say that in the past, you would, fight a war, you'd win, you'd kill everybody, you'd take their gold, and you'd rewrite the rules in your favor, which is really the simplified version of empires and the history of civilization. And what's interesting right now is because of cryptography and decentralized finance, that we can create these stores of value. And we talked on your show a couple days ago about this idea of the fact that cryptocurrency is a misnomer, and that it's actually a crypto asset, and it's a place where people independently, separate from the state, can store value. And so we as an organization obviously have tokenized the Texas Nationalist Movement, which is with the Texan token, and then 5,000 churches in the Philippines, which is a more of a philanthropic approach with Ophir crypto. And now we're talking with you, and you came to me at the TexitCon to talk about what does it look like to tokenize a community of people. And what I was blown away by, because I didn't know about this, and I started doing my research on you, and I watched your show, the full English show on Rumble. And to me, Rumble is, it's an alternative. But what amazed me, and this is important for the folks that are listening that are in crypto, that have been following this channel and our community and Pulse Chain and all of that. Graham Moore, when I just tuned in randomly, had 353 people concurrently watching. Well, I asked Graham about that, and I'm going to ask you again. You've had a YouTube channel over 100,000 subscribers, and at some point in time, you had 10,000 people watching live. The engagement on your topics of constitution and law have been incredibly popular and had a tremendous amount of engagement. Is that accurate?
No, that's very accurate. So there's a history of this, and they only take down people, one, that tell the truth, and two, what they're saying is dangerous to them, right? Especially if you're imparting information that they can use legally against them, right? And they've covered it up or whatever. So I had 3 channels, one with 100,000 subscribers, one with 25,000 subscribers, one with 2,500 subscribers. Again, the 10,000 simultaneous views when we was out on a protest. I can't even remember what the protest was, but it went quite high. The average for me was 1,200.
Wow.
People tuning into the show. You had Facebook. My Facebook account and continuous every single day. I used to drive to work and do a morning show driving through the traffic, right? People in the traffic used to bib because they'd be watching my show as I drove past them, right? That's how funny it was. And people even say to me now, I remember watching your show and getting up in the morning, you know, retired people, and they would look forward to me going to work and then locking the car up and say, that's it, I'm at the site, and then I'm off on the scaffolding doing whatever. So again, I was just a normal everyday working person. So they shut down my Facebook. They shut down my Twitter account. I had 15,000 followers on Twitter. They shut that down. There was a particular video that went out, and I was on RT, Russia Today, for 20 minutes every Friday. They used to send a car for me. I'd go up there. They'd ask me about a subject, and I'd talk about the subject. One of those videos on YouTube within weeks had got 1.5 million views, right? So people enjoyed what I had to say, and I'd tell it straight as it was just a normal everyday working man, but they could also tell that what I was saying was researched, my own research. It wasn't a regurgitation of mainstream media. And generally discussions that you're having with people on the street. So people are starting to realize there is something else out there, and there's something wrong with the system, seriously wrong with the system, and they're especially now. But getting back to what you just said about the separation of the political. So again, just to make sure everyone understands, Great Britain is an island. It contains 2 countries, England and Scotland, and a principality called Wales. Now, Wales used to be its own country. In 1536, it come into the fold with England, right? So it's a common law jurisdiction. It's got more in common with us than it has with Scotland. Scotland is a Roman law jurisdiction. In other words, it's the same as the European Union, right? So it's a different form of law. It's administrative law, not the common law. And the freest system in the world is a common law system, which was adopted by the independent United States of America, bar one state, which was Louisiana, right? They're a Roman law jurisdiction, but they're still governed by the Supreme Court. So they can only do X within the Constitution. So the main point to be is the financial element. Obviously, we've got a central bank called the Bank of England, but you've got the Bank of Scotland. But before that, it was separated. People don't realise that England was a confederacy, right? Just very similar to Switzerland in terms of that each independent shire and county, right, of England, so Kent or Lancashire. Kent is a county, Essex is a county, Lancashire, Yorkshire, which is Yorkshire is the equivalent of Texas. It's the star shire or the star county, the star element. They could survive on their own. They don't need England, and they don't need the British, right? The major point to remember about this is the system was the same. So you had independent courts, you had county courts, you had independent councils that made their own laws, right? And as long as they stayed within the English constitution, they was fine. And the English Parliament was really a light touch parliament, and the people were elected to make sure that your rights weren't infringed. That's what the original MPs should be there, and they should be doing it now, but they don't. So when you think about that, you've got the other side of it, which is the banking system then started. If you go back to the Magna Carta, if you read it, and by the way, America has got an enclave in Runnymede, Surrey. It's actually American soil. It's 3 acres, right? And it's the JFK monument, which is in memorial to JFK. We go there every 2 years and say prayers for America, JFK, and the current president, including obviously President Trump. The point I'm trying to say to you is that on the financial element of this, the Magna Carta stated, and if you read the Magna Carta, the original Magna Carta, it didn't just give the City of London its rights. It gave the other towns and cities in England equal rights. That's what it said, right? So it was to keep its rights, but other places around England could keep it. Now, what's happened is that's morphed away and again been centralised into the City of London, where the Palace of Westminster, which is Parliament, is located as well. And what they did was, eventually they used laws. People don't realise that there are Rembrandts, as I think they're called, from the City of London that sit in Parliament. And if there is a law that conflicts with the City of London, they can stop it and say, oh, no, you're not doing that. That affects us, right? So we're not having it. The point being that they amalgamated all these things. They shut down what we called building societies. I don't know what you would call them over there, save and loans or something similar to that, where it's not actually a bank. It's more a community saving, and you go to mortgages and loans.
Oh, credit union, yeah. Yeah, so, credit unions.
So again, you had banks, Yorkshire Bank, for example, in different places. You had in Hull, the penny bank. There was different banks all over, and they was also semi-independent, right? All of that's really been closed down now, and the corporations have got control. And then you've got the centralisation of that with the Bank of England, and then obviously you've got the attachment to the Federal Reserve. So that causes a big issue because, again, with the policies that they're putting in place, whether they be financial, there's a lot of waste in the government. I mean, an extreme amount of waste, layers and layers. I mean, if you think you've got problems in Washington, D.C., with the administration that are always there, it's been sitting there the way it is at the moment for well in excess of 150, maybe 200 years. So it's entrenched. And the only real way of getting rid of it is independence and say, right, that's it. You're not going back to scratch. You're going back to the start dot English Constitution, 1688, and the Bill of Rights, and then all the laws that existed before still exist, and then whatever we need to do to bring ourselves up if we need to. But most of the common laws, the common law jurisdiction, cover most offences anyway. You don't need reams and reams and reams of regulations and laws covering, everything and anything. You just need the common law.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's talk about the power of tokenization. A lot of the people who watch this channel and know what we're doing as far as tokenizing communities, to me, it's very exciting when there is a group, for example, like English Exit or the English Constitution Society. And the reason is this: we see ourselves as separate, right? Texas or Philippines or England. What is amazing about crypto is that, it knows no rank or riverbank, right? It is purely peer-to-peer. and its connective tissue is communication. And so the nature of the blockchain is that we have this freedom of speech to write to it. And because it is completely decentralized, it gives the opportunity for people to engage with true decentralized finance, which means these are immutable contracts on the blockchain. These cannot be changed. There's no administrative keys, and they function based on how they're written. And so in our community, we talk about code is law, meaning it does not change. And so the real attractive thing about why Bitcoin was invented, no counterparty risk, no middlemen, censorship resistance, is that what we've seen in this kind of first era of crypto, and I'll call it kind of phase one of crypto, was we saw the cypherpunk people, and really, I think out of the 2008 financial crisis, this desire to say, let's have something where no one can move the goalposts, no one can increase the supply. And so obviously Bitcoin was started, but now that we have programmable money that's decentralized through things like Ethereum, blockchain, and others that are EVM chains, the fact that we can create and program money, it really now comes down to community and the ability to communicate with one another about value. And so I think what attracts so many people to crypto is the fact that at the very core, they saw some other people get rich. And one of the things that I see, and I know that is common with you as well, is that there's much, much more going on. And this is a tool that we can animate for not only the purposes of restoring freedom, but it's very fundamental to the time we live in. And so what I think is interesting is I look back at 1860 in America in the last kind of crisis era and what happened then. Well, imagine we didn't have this wholesale change in the financial system coming, and it's here right now, that we didn't have this tool or mechanism. And I think that this is something that as we continue to add communities and we tokenize communities of places where there's existing trust, and that's something that, a number of the folks who are kind of macroeconomic people, and the one I always refer to is Raoul Pal. Raoul Pal was with Goldman Sachs. He left and became to the dark side of crypto. One of the things he talks about, and really was the inspiration for me, was that this is the first time political power and financial power has been separated. That means that we can take it back. And so these movements in the past that have been kind of political in nature, independence, self-determination, have been really restricted because they haven't had the resources. What I want to communicate to people that are in England or believe in self-determination is that we have every opportunity here to unlock an abundance by working together. And so the concept of cartel and collusion on the positive side is to say, if we were to work together, if we were to support one another in this separate financial system, and we created our own store of value, that what is coming in this crypto world, which we just saw yesterday, CZ literally pleading guilty, the SEC, the Department of Justice, is trying to clamp down on these kind of what they consider to be rogue leaders in crypto so that essentially BlackRock can take the lead. We're essentially sacrificing Bitcoin on the altar of centralization, meaning that we are basically having to let it go to the centralized players, hash power, accumulation of Bitcoin. But what we don't realize, and what others don't realize, is that decentralized finance is out of the bag. The Pandora's box is open.
Yeah.
But I want your community, I want the Texan community, I want the folks in the Philippines and wherever else this goes to recognize that we have all of the power and and why I say that is at its absolute fundamental level, we are sovereign over the government. Right? You've got all kinds of history and background and all that. But at the end of the day, what we recognize, and I recognize here in Texas, is that we created this. I don't care how far back you go. We are sovereign because we don't get our rights from the state. The Constitution doesn't give us our rights. The Bill of Rights does not give us our rights. It actually shows the limitation of what that federal bureaucracy can do. And like you said about the MPs, they are supposed to actually defend these rights.
Yep.
but they are fundamental and self-evident. And so what's really great about tokenizing a community, and I think is really exciting for this movement, is that we essentially band together. And so our ecosystem, which right now is going to be a decentralized exchange and tokenized communities like Texan, Ophir, and hopefully in England, and then others, is that we can band together around what we call an incentive token, is that we can actually provide an incentive on top of the core token of that independent nation. And what's great about it is we're essentially building a new economic order that is completely 100% decentralized, immutable, and cannot be touched. Well, how does it grow? Well, if you recognize that whatever money you have is just a proxy of your labor, it's just a function of your creative ability, then you can put that anywhere that you want. And what we're seeing in the States, Graham, is that there's really some pretty big cases where precedent may get set, just like in the Citizens United case, which said that political contributions of money is speech. And I think when it comes down to it, my hope is that we're going to see that writing to the blockchain is going to be considered a communication network, and your money, wherever you put it, let's say you put it into the Quid coin or to Texan that is your speech. That gets established, all bets are off. We have such an opportunity to basically retake back this position of sovereignty over the government. And we can say, no, we're self-determined and we will create our own future.
Right.
And so there's so much at stake here. And I want our people in our community to recognize that as we add communities, it strengthens all of them. Because if we were just to do like the English exit token, it would stand on its own. But because you're joining with other groups of self-determined people across the world,
Catalonia,
it's huge.
Example. It's massive. It's kicking off in Spain now. They're not telling you on the mainstream news. And the biggest weapon against the socialist communist system is decentralization. And people have got to understand that. So two things, let me just say. You've just described the tokenism, the electronic coins, as it were. What you're actually talking about is an electronic version of bricks, right? That's what it is. Except you could park bricks there and you say, that's gold. You can park another one there and say, that's in silver. Park another one there and say, that is the Quid coin, right? And it's for English exit as a token, for example. But the crucial other thing for people to remember, and don't forget, I'll look at this from a decentralization, to take the power away from the people that are crushing us. And it is the financial system that has created a debt slavery system, right? And that is the Bank of International Settlements that's in Switzerland, right? The way you can operate with gold if you wanted to. So if you go to work all week and you turn around and say, no, I'll tell you what, you pay me £1,000 in gold, right? And they've give you £1,000. You could go and take that in and say, well, I'll tell you what, I want it in English tokens. So they cash it up, or they cash a percentage of it up into English tokens. And then if I wanted to go and transfer any money whatsoever to Texas, I haven't got to go through the International Bank of Settlements, and I haven't got to go through their electronic system that's watching everything. So again, the reason why they're so terrified of it is because the way they operate in a socialist system and a communist system is they have the control of the fruits of your labor, and they tax it, and then layers and layers and layers and layers of these people that are really of no benefit whatsoever, right? But the fact is that they can't put a window in, they can't put a bit of glazing in, they can't fix a roof, they can't fix a car, and here's the classic, they can't even ride an horse, right? So what do? You say, I'll tell you what, you go and learn something that's of use in our community, all right? And then we'll start paying you in crypto. Simple as that. And you'll see it will go back to the way it used to be. And the way it used to be, I mean, a lot of people in America don't realise this. Everyone says that the National Health Service in this country is free. I used to get anywhere between £400 and £700 a month just for the National Health Service come out of my salary before it even went in my pocket, right? And
Yep.
7 billion a year is defrauded from them through procurement, right? And there's hardly anyone working on fraud in the National Health Service. So when you start to look at these situations, crypto is an answer to so many things where the people take back control and the state have lost control of it. It goes back to being decentralized. And then if you want to pay £100 a month in crypto for your own healthcare, and you've got an hospital that accepts crypto and everyone's happy with it, and you're building that community, that's exactly how it should be. And the government you're forcing the government out of the equation.
Yeah. Well, and what's the ultimate result? But we defund the war machine. I was watching I watched last night a documentary on the House of Rothschild, and really the core of, you know, the banking cartel, if you will, was financing war, right? Governments were the best to lend to because they were the best at paying their loans back. And if you think about what that has led to, and now with corporate integration, it is essentially a war machine. And that is a huge threat, right? Because what people are seeing is that, at least in the States here, a completely tone deaf political class who literally says, you know what? The only thing that's backing this money is the good faith and credit of the United States of America, which is really code for, I'll reach into your pocket, I'll steal from you, and I'll put it wherever I want. I'll send $100 billion to Ukraine. And right now they're saying, oh, well, we got to find some sort of solution in Ukraine now. Oh, we got to find peace now because we've realized we lost, which we could have done a year or more ago. And what's so sad about this is not only the loss of life, but this is an old model. And this old model, which doesn't value human life, we now have the power to animate these tools to restore this. And you said this early on, we are the generation, right? We are the generation that has to fix this. And it requires leadership. And anyone that's out there that is listening to this, I want you to see something with Graham and his group. In crypto, because this is the beginning, in crypto, at the end of the day, because of the decentralized exchanges, which is literally just peer-to-peer, individual people make pairings, they put liquidity up, and the market is made. We know that more buyers than sellers, the price goes up. Well, when things begin, just like anything, whether it's Coca-Cola or Amazon, being in at the beginning is the key. But what's amazing about the tokenomics of the contract, the endowment contract, is the fact that we reward people for their long-term thinking. And now when we couple that with Texan and Ophir and Freedom Swap and all of the things we're doing with Unifier Token, is literally to say, we're going to come together, a people that are self-determined across the world, and we are going to create something that is greater than, you know, the sum of its parts is greater than us individually. And to me, this is how we win. We win by amassing our own economic resources and storing those in a place that invites people from the world to come with us. And it literally, to me right now, it seems like, oh yeah, that's crypto. But here's what's going to happen. We're going to see the central bank digital currencies become required. It might be through crisis, it might through health scare, but we're going to see a central bank digital currency across the world. It's digitizing money. It is coming. But that comes with a social credit score. That comes with a digital ID. That comes with all kinds of ability to track and trace. And so, in my opinion, we have not only a responsibility to tokenize and amass our resources, but we also have a responsibility to have the rails, if you will, of the infrastructure of an alternative system. And so I look at a person like Richard Hart, the Pulse chain, is that standing up for freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, freedom to transact, freedom of privacy, those things are going to be gone very, very quickly. And we need to have an alternative when people realize, I look at the Charlie 19. Originally, what happened with that, people are like, okay, we want to do what's right and we want to be safe. Reasonable people were conscientious. But then they realized classically what the elites would do is overplay their hand, and they would use that crisis to get power. And we see that that'll happen again. And people will realize, oh, what we thought your intentions were good. Oh, they're not good. No, they're not good. So we have this alternative. And so to me, right now is the absolute perfect time to do this. Why? Because we're at the bottom of the market. The centralized players have now said crypto is legitimate and we're going in. And in this process, for them to essentially take this thing and take control of it, they're taking their own poison pill. Because what they're doing is they're going to, because the rising tide lifts all boats. If you increase crypto in its centralized form, like Bitcoin, you raise decentralized with it, right? And we are going to be the only ones that have real trustless yield. And that's what the world is just, jonesing for, is trustless yield. And so to me, I want people to see, I'm super excited about English exit. I'm excited not just because of the kind of political movement of it, but because there are people who have identified that there's a problem and they're willing to be a part of the solution. And this collectiveness, we're the same, Graham. We're the same in Texas as you are in England.
No, I absolutely agree with what you've just said there. And people really do need to understand that this is the system trying to take control of what they perceive to be a threat to their system. They control it, and then what they're going to do is put all these little extras of programmable elements. Again, a centralized system. If you go to our website, the English Constitution Party.com, you'll see a link on there to a digital Bill of Rights. I'm not talking about another set of a Bill of Rights or a new constitution. It's literally written up in there that you cannot have a centralized digital currency controlled by a government, programmable, and then it goes right through a list. Now, I used to be a telecommunications engineer. I used to be a tier one, work for a tier one provider, level 3 communications in the US, and I worked over here on the European side of it. I can tell you, this feels the same as when they deregulated, right? Because that's what you're really talking about, deregulation. When you decentralize, you deregulate, right? I'm not suggesting that there's always going to be some problems here or there, right? But nothing is without risk at all. But we are the people, the greater risk is to do nothing. The greater risk is to allow them to take control of that system. We're the ones that built the internet, not them. We built it. What did they do to the internet? They're trying to crush our free speech, regulate our free speech. One company that allows me now to have a free reign, literally, and guess what their system is on Rumble for strikes? They have a 12 content provider jury, right? They run it like it's a constitutional system of seeing as whether you offended against the platform, right? And 12 other providers make a decision on whether you did or you didn't, and you can still appeal that, right? So what I'm saying is that platform, why is Rumble under attack? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's exactly the same thing. Why are they under attack? Because they stuck their middle finger up at the British, right? When the British said to Rumble, you can't do this, you need to comply with this, you need to do this. What did Rumble say? No, right? This is a free speech platform, and they've built their own infrastructure and platform. So our systems and what we're building now could, in some years to come, be provided from their platform because it's completely independent. There's no one else who can touch it. That's the beauty of what we're actually doing. So again, when you look at people like Catalonia, and I'm seeing what's kicking off in Spain, it's not minor. right? This is the last time it looked like this. There was a civil war, right, in Spain. You got the Catalonian ex-president or person who's fronting that group there. He's talking about it. So more and more people around the world, and again, it is so vital, absolutely vital, that not only do we stand up for our constitutional rights and freedoms and liberties, but we stand up for our financial independence against the state. Defund the state. And the way to do that is with this crypto system decentralized.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm going to flash something up on the screen as kind of my hope and my vision for this next step in this process. And I just want to share this with folks because it's kind of a teaser to our community. But this is our ecosystem as it potentially would be next. Is we have the Texan token, we have the unifier token. That's the incentive token for anyone across the ecosystem who stakes their tokens for the max length, which is 22 years. And so, Graham, you may or may not know this, but in the contract, it's an endowment. In the endowment contract, it's built to incentivize people to hold, meaning it creates and pays interest in the current token. So, for example, Texan token stakers, no matter how long they stake, there's a 5% base interest annually. And the longer that they wait, the more interest every year. And it's really daily. But what ends up happening is over the course of 22 years, it's 1,881%, and it mimics compounding interest. But at any point in time, with no penalty, people can scrape that interest. And the idea where this comes from is in the nonprofit space that I've worked for the last 23 years is all about utilizing investment income to be able to use as cash flow. And so the idea that there would be essentially an endowment token that anyone could say, I'm going to put my economic energy here, I'm going to lock it up, and I'm essentially creating passive income. And that's how the token contract is created. So we've got Texan, we've got the unifier token, which will be for all communities. We've got an example here, whether that becomes the token or not for English exit. And then we have Freedom Swap, which is the white one there. Freedom Swap is our decentralized exchange that will be launching here in 2024. And then, of course, on the far right is the Philippines token, which is called Ophir Crypto. What I'm excited about, Graham, is you've talked about other communities out there. I believe that we are the organization who is tokenizing independence movements across the world. And I want as many people who understand self-determination, that there's an opportunity for them to help finance their cause. Because what we did with the Texas independence movement was say, we want to help you raise money. And if you give to this registered nonprofit organization, all the money goes to them. It's a donation to them. But that's how you get token distribution from us, is they give you points. And in this case, the English Constitution Society, if they decide to do this, they would basically say, all right, we'll keep track of anyone who gives to us. And when they give to us, we'll give them points. And that's how we will do the distribution of token. And so I'm excited about being on the dawn of this because, Graham, we've gone through the longest bear market in crypto. And last 3 times this happened, things went insane. They went parabolic. And so the crypto I got into, which was called Hex, went up 10,000x in 623 days. We're coming into the next, bull run. That's the best possible time because everyone in the world has heard you buy low and you sell high. This is an opportunity for us to gather freedom-minded, sovereignty-minded, self-determination-minded folks across the world. You don't have to be in England. You don't have to be in Texas. You don't have to be in the Philippines. But what we're doing is we're building essentially an ecosystem that is it's an ecosystem of freedom and sovereignty. And I believe ultimately that's going to live on the layer 1 of the Pulse chain. But folks, this is an exciting, development for us as a community because Graham and his community has so much engagement Because one of the things that people recognize in us, Graham, in our community, there's a lot of builders who have created tokens, but most people are recycling existing money because they just have the current community. We're one of the only projects that represents completely no coiners. The members of the Texas Nationalist Movement, English Exit, Ophira, and the churches, they don't know crypto. And the key to this growing is new users coming into the crypto ecosystem. And that's what makes me so excited about this future, is that that's why people come to it, is because it's growing and there's more buyers than sellers.
No, I agree with you. And just let me make a point to the audience as well, because I think this needs to be said. If we void the acts of union, right? So not if, but when we do it, because it's going to happen, right? So the political union of the British disappeared. By the way, it means the British have gone, right? There's some other issues that will happen from that, right? But I want people to understand that means that anyone or any colony, and we regard ourselves as a captured nation, as a colony of the British, right? Every colony in the world would be automatically released once that union is disbanded. No different to what happened with the USSR. Remember this. You've got Scotland, England, Wales, and then Ireland automatically gets unified, right? By this. So if we can get the finance and resource that we need to do it, and just to make sure everyone understands this as well, it doesn't mean that England leaves the Commonwealth. That is a separate, independent, voluntary organisation. So what it means is that any countries that are not in it and are suddenly released from being a colony, they have the option of joining the Commonwealth. So all of those people around the world should have a vested interest in England becoming independent.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And you know what I love about the word Commonwealth? If you think about why did we create these systems, and you think about way back to the beginning of civilization, why would we create something and call it a commonwealth? And if you think about, actually, it's what a wonderful word of this. We ought to use that word more often in our community, is to say this is a common wealth, that wealth is common, right? And that the point of this is, what does it mean to be wealthy? We didn't say rich, we said wealthy. What is the commonwealth of people? That's healthy, that's wealth producing. Those are the elements that, you have to have that freedom. The beauty of it is, we have the systems in which to do it. The only thing that is limiting us is our willingness to consider others in addition to ourselves. It's all through community. And what I love about it, Graham, when I first met you, is we're the same, dude. We talk differently, but we believe the same thing. And I love it that we can have that common understanding. I'm really excited, folks. If you want to follow Graham, there's links in the description of this video. Tell me about where people find you. How do they get connected with you? How do they support you? I want everyone to know what you're doing.
So I've got a new account on Twitter, mainly since our friend Elon Musk took over, but I'm still shadow banned. I can tell you that now. So on there, it's Graham H. Moore. So at Graham H. Moore. On Rumble, you can find me. It's either the Daddy Dragon channel, or you can just put in a search, the Full English Show, and it should come up. I think we're up to about 5,600 or 5,700 subscribers. Rumble is becoming more and more known. And they're adding functions to it all the time. It's the only platform you can put the English flag, believe it or not. If you try and put the English flag on YouTube, it comes up as black. If you put it on many other things, it comes up as black. It doesn't allow the English flag. So on there, Rumble give us the facility. And if you look in our chat, when I ask people to do a vote on something, because there's a lot of engagement, they'll just send up the English flag and it will just fly up the chat, and we light up the whole channel with English flags. So obviously some people, namely the British, don't like that, because I've said I don't want any British flags on there, right? So the major thing is that you can find me on Rumble, Twitter, and obviously I'm also on Gab and Truth Social. So again, the English Constitution Party, you should be able to find us on Truth Social. One final point though about the Commonwealth, just as an interesting point, that the Commonwealth, Cromwell, not that I particularly liked him because he wasn't a very nice person. When they executed the king, they took the crown and they re-smelted it. And what he said was, I want inside that crown, on that gold, it must state the words property of the Commonwealth.
Mm.
So all I'm saying to you is all we're doing is taking back our independence, finance, and also our independence, and pushing the state away and saying, leave us alone.
Amen to that, Graham Moore. Wow, Daddy Dragon in the house, folks. This is exciting for so many different reasons. Thank you for introducing yourself at TexitCon. Thanks for all that you do. You've got a ton of support here in Texas and across the world. And then there are a bunch of people in Europe, as well as, yeah, there you go, Texit by Daniel Miller. It's you've got friends here, and so thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to connecting with you more. And folks, pay attention. We're having these conversations about tokenizing England. That is huge. Thanks, Graham.
No worries. Thank you.
All right, bud. Folks, once again, here we go. Another great interview with Graham Moore from the English Constitution Society and Party. Folks, I want you to recognize what's happening. I mean, think about the early days of Hex. Think about the folks that saw what was going on. You're seeing the same thing happening. And what I mean by that is, you know, Richard Hart came out and said, hey, we're building a better Bitcoin. And then I got involved in all this because I saw that he was literally going to fork Ethereum and it was going to become the Pulse chain. And we started to build, right? Started with the Texas independence movement. Then we're like, all right, we need a DEX. Then Ophir came along, and now an incentive token, now more communities. The point is, we need to bring more users in, right? If you're paying attention to this, it works on Metcalfe's law, right? Metcalfe's law, it ultimately is the growth of the network, not just the money, right? It's nice to have whales and have people that invest, but at the end of the day, you have to have constant growth. Well, what does that require? Well, the connective tissue of growth is community and relationships. So why not go to the places where there are current existing truth and trust? Well, that's communities like this. The engagement that Graham has is unbelievable. I mean, to think that on Rumble you could have 353 people every single night, at least that, we don't have that at all in our community. Occasionally, when something big happens, you'll see 250 to 300 people engage. He's having this every single night. There's so much going on in this world, folks, and by tapping into that, it helps increase everything in this Pulse chain community, what we're doing with Texan, what we're doing with Ophir, what we're doing with Freedom Swap and Unifier. Folks, this is an exciting time to be alive. So don't get yourself down, right? These things are ordained, like my good friend, my good friend has said many, many times, Sam Kemp. And Sam, it's just a reminder that we have a calling. And so I encourage you, let's get the word out, whether you're in the Texas independence movement, whether you're in the Philippines and in serving churches, or whether you're in England, and self-determination, this ultimate retaking back of the truth, and that is our personal sovereignty. We are the things that are sovereign, not the state, because the state only exists by our consent. Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat, and we will catch you. And if you're in the States, happy Thanksgiving to you. Take care, everybody. Do not mess with Texas or England. Take care, everybody.